It began not with a roar, but with a silence born from betrayal, from humiliation, from a broken world that promised peace. After World War I, the Treaty of Versailles punished Germany with crushing debts, territorial losses, and national humiliation. A proud people were left starving, bitter, and broken. He was a failed artist, a wounded veteran, a man with a dark gift, the power to persuade. Rising through the chaos of the 1920s and 30s, Hitler took control of Germany through fear, propaganda, and violence. Silently, he promised jobs, pride, and revenge. He blamed Jews, communists, and foreigners for Germany's problems. And the people listened, and in their pain, they became vulnerable to a voice that promised strength, vengeance, and restoration, and delivered ashes. Only 2 decades had passed since the war to end all wars, but the world had not learned. It had only prepared. Somewhere in the shadows, hate was growing, and soon fire would rain from the skies. Oceans would turn red, cities would fall, and the very idea of humanity would be tested. This is the story of World War II, the deadliest conflict in human history. The seeds of the Second World War were planted in the blood-soaked mud of the First. That voice belonged to Adolf Hitler. He wasn't a general, he wasn't royalty. In 1933, Hitler became chancellor. By 1939, he had turned Germany into a war machine. In the skies above Britain, German bombers met fierce resistance from the Royal Air Force. The Battle of Britain became the first major defeat for Hitler's military. But it was only the beginning. At first, the world watched nervously when Hitler marched into the Rhineland, a violation of the treaty. No one stopped him while Europe burned. Asia bled. When he annexed Austria in 1938, the world looked away. No continent was untouched. No country was truly saved. What followed was the Bataan Death March, a forced trek of over 60,000 prisoners under blazing sun with little food or water. Thousands died. The cruelty was unimaginable. When he took over Czechoslovakia, piece by piece, the world chose appeasement. The very next day, the United States declared war on Japan. Days later, Germany and Italy declared war on the U.S. He believed it would fall quickly, like all the rest. But Russia was vast, cold, and unbreakable. Thousands died that morning, but they broke through. Within months, France was liberated. The Battle of Stalingrad, one of the bloodiest battles in history, became a turning point. Iwo Jima, Okinawa. Each battle came at a horrific cost, but the Americans were closing in. Soviet troops, fighting street by street, turned the tide. Germany began to retreat. Peace in our time, they said. But peace built on fear is just a calm before the storm. On September 1st, 1939, the storm began. In an instant, tens of thousands were vaporized. 3 days later, another bomb fell on Nagasaki. German troops invaded Poland from the west. 2 days later, Britain and France declared war. The Second World War had begun. But this war was different. Germany unleashed a terrifying new form of warfare. Blitzkrieg lightning war. Tanks, planes, and infantry struck with speed and overwhelming force. Poland collapsed in weeks. Soon after, Germany turned west, invading Denmark, Norway, the Netherlands, Belgium, Luxembourg, and finally, France. One by one, they fell like dominoes. By June 1940, Paris, the city of light, was under Nazi control. Britain stood alone. Death camps, gas chambers, human beings reduced to numbers, and it was evil on a scale humanity had never seen and could never forget. But Britain would not fall, not easily. Under Prime Minister Winston Churchill, the British people stood firm. "We shall fight on the beaches," he said. And they did. Far to the east, Another empire was rising. Japan, hungry for power and resources, had already invaded Manchuria in 1931 and launched a full-scale war against China in 1937. Brutality followed, massacres, rape, scorched earth. Then, in December 1941, the war exploded into a true world war. On December 7th, Japanese planes attacked Pearl Harbor, a U.S. naval base in Hawaii. Battleships burned. Thousands died. Now, the world was fully at war. In 1946, the country was officially recognized as a free nation, but the scars of war remained. From the deserts of North Africa, to the jungles of Southeast Asia, to the icy plains of Russia, to the oceans of the Atlantic and Pacific, the war was everywhere. In the Philippines, Japan launched a brutal invasion. American and Filipino soldiers fought with everything they had, but outnumbered and outgunned, they were forced into surrender. In Europe, Hitler made a fatal mistake, and though the guns have fallen silent, the memories must not. This is the story of World War II, the war that drowned the world in fire and shaped the world we live in today. In 1941, despite warnings from his generals, he invaded the Soviet Union. Meanwhile, the Allies, Britain, the US, and the Soviets began to push back. In North Africa, Nazi forces were driven out. In Italy, Mussolini's regime collapsed. And in June 6, 1944, D-Day Allied forces stormed the beaches of Normandy, France. In the Pacific, the U.S. began a brutal campaign called island hopping, capturing one island at a time, moving ever closer to Japan. Then came the final horror. In 1945, with Germany collapsing and Japan refusing to surrender, the United States made a choice, one that would change the world forever. On August 6, 1945, the U.S. dropped an atomic bomb on the city of Hiroshima. The world had entered the nuclear age. On September 2, 1945, Japan officially surrendered. World War II was over, but at what cost? Over 70 million people died. Entire cities vanished. An entire generation lost to the smoke. The Holocaust, the industrial genocide of 6 million Jews, was revealed in full. Germany was defeated. Japan was in ruin. Italy was broken. But the victors were changed too. The United States emerged as a superpower. The Soviet Union, once an ally, soon became a rival. The world was no longer ruled by empires, but by tension. The Cold War had begun. In the Philippines, the end of World War II marked the beginning of a new path. Independence, from Manila to Moscow, from Berlin to Bataan, the pain was universal. The lessons bitter, and yet, somehow, the world rebuilt. Skyscrapers rose, children laughed again. Nations found peace, or tried to, but the echoes remain. Every time we forget, we risk repeating. Every time we divide, we invite destruction. World War II was not just a battle of armies. It was a battle for the soul of humanity. This is the story of courage, cruelty, survival, and sacrifice, of dictators and dreamers, of victims and victors. Remember it, learn from it, and never, ever forget.